Hey everyone, Fuse here. Today we'll be taking a look at possible upcoming banners for the second half of December 2020. It's gonna be a shorter video, not too much to look at, but I do have some things to say. So for this month of December, so far, they haven't released too many of the normal banners. The one we're getting tonight actually is the Little Mermaid Paladin, and that is a banner that they skipped quite a while ago, I think 2 months ago. So we're finally getting that. And then we also got the Kaguya Crusher and Snow White Minstrel. That was supposed to be like a month ago as well. So it looks like they're going through the backlog of banners that we skipped in the past. So I wouldn't be surprised if they possibly release Snow White Paladin during sometime this month. But I'm not going to go over that in this video because I went over, I think, in the first banner predictions. So if you want to see thoughts on that, I think it's a pretty straightforward banner. For the rest of the month, I'm not going to go over any other new normal banners in the rotation because they didn't do any of the last 5 yet that I went over in the last video. So if you want to see those that could be coming out as well, watch that. And then for this month, we're going to be taking a look at, or for this video, we're going to be taking a look at 3 banners specifically. I don't want to go over this banner. This is what they got in JP for New Year's. It's just 3 rate up nightmares. You can only pull it 5 times for 500 crystals. I mean, I'm not too sure exactly the details on the banner because I can't translate the photo, but since it is 500 crystals, there's definitely like some special rate up for SRs. If that's the case, I think it could be alright to pull on, but since it's just a Nightmares rate up, I don't necessarily need that, and I don't think many people need more Gacha Nightmares. What we're going to be going over are the possible alt reality banners, the rest of the alt reality banners actually, that could be coming out. Mainly because during the Christmas livestream, when they announced the Christmas banner that we predicted in the first video, they also teased the voice acting for the alt Snow White, as well as the alt Pinocchio, I believe. I don't have access to the VOD of that, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened. So we're going to go over those characters in that banner that they came on. But those jobs actually came out after the Sleeping Beauty and Cinderella alternate reality arcs. So I'm curious as if they're going to release it after those two, or if they're going to release it first. So we're just going to go over both banners just to cover our bases. And then lastly, we're going to cover the possible New Year's banner that we could be getting, which is this one, which I think is also going to be our 6-month anniversary, but don't quote me on that. So firstly, this is what could be coming up. It's going to be this Sleeping Beauty alt and the Sleeping Beauty Cinderella Gunner. They come on the same banner, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do a step up, but in JP it was not a step up. And if we go into the metal shop, it's this metal shop. It's going to have the normal alt reality stats on both of them. So 160 for each stat, total of 640. And then the Cinderella, same deal with that. And then looking at the tome for the Sleeping Beauty alt, this is going to be a pretty solid tome. It's going to be 1.5 for both defenses, as well as support boon 1. So we got a similar book recently. It's going to be Voltage Dictionary. There aren't too many good 18 cost L defense debuffing tomes. So I think this is going to be a solid pickup. And if it is a step up, I think that's going to be a must pull and maybe even a must MLB. And then looking at the gun, I believe it's alright. Yeah, okay. It's tier 3 skill, damage to 1 target, increase own magic attack, and then M attack debuff, which is not good. It has alright stats, that's about the only thing carrying it right now. But I think for this is not going to be worth pulling on as a gunner. This is one of the worst support skills you can have, and it's an alright main call skill. But compared to everything else that you could be going for, I think this is going to be probably a pass unless you want the job. Other than that, I would not pull on it as a gunner. And then looking at the rate up weapons, but not the featured, this is going to be, in my opinion, probably one of the best swords in the game. It's going to be a tier 4 damage skill, so the best damage skill you can have on a sword right now. And then DC 2. And then a pretty good allocation towards P attack. So I think this is going to be a solid pickup, especially since it can go LL in the future. I think it's going to be a must pull for breakers. And also, I guess you can start prepping for Breaker Half Nightmare, since the GC orders kind of all thrown out of whack, so they could release Breaker Half Nightmare at any point, really. So start preparing for that, and I think it's going to be a must pick up for breakers. As for crushers now, I honestly don't roll on it, because you're going to be rolling for hammers, since we have Half Nightmare Crusher, and then obviously any other job, do not roll on that. And then this is going to be a pretty decent harp in my opinion. It's not going to be the best, but it is decent. I think, so 2 attack, 1.5 targets, tier 3. And it has weapon repair 2, which is alright, and then decent stats for an 18 cost. With weapon repair 2, I think it definitely is underrated, especially at the point in the game we are right now. Support boon is obviously going to be better in the long run, but for filling in your grid right now, weapon repairs, especially at tier 2, is going to be just fine. And I think just having another decent attack harp could be good. Really, it's just looking at your grid. At this point in the game, you're going to be looking at mostly LBs, and then also just weeding out the bad stuff in your grid. So if you need this, roll on it, but it's not going to be a must pull compared to something like the Violin of Scales that we're getting tonight on the Little Mermaid Paladin banner. So that's it for this. To summarize real quick, I think it's going to be a must pull for Sorks. That's a really good tome. Probably only pull for the job if you really want for gunners, and then probably a must pull for breakers. Situationally, for minstrels, if you need another attack harp, this could replace things like the tutorial one that people are still running. But other than that, I don't think it's a must pull, but it is a really good harp. And then looking at what they teased for the Christmas livestream a couple weeks ago, this is going to be the Alt Pinocchio and the Alt Snow White banner. The thing that's interesting about this one is it was a step-up banner, but the step-up banners in JP are different than how they are in EN right now. And it only had 2 rate-up and featured weapons on this. So it only came with the tome and only came with the hammer as rate-up. So looking at this, which I think it's in this metal shop, yeah. So looking at it, same deal with the jobs, 640, 160 for each stat. There you go. And then looking at the hammer, this is going to be an insane hammer at this point in the game. It's going to have a tier 3 pure damage skill, so the best damage skill you can have in the game right now, as well as DC 2, and a slight favoring towards P attack. But with how many DC 2 hammers that are in the game, and especially if this is a step up, this is going to be a must pull for most crushers, especially since we have that half nightmare now. Crushers are a lot more relevant, and I think if hammers keep coming out at the rate they have been coming, P attack is definitely going to be on par with M attack in the near future. Probably I'd give it a month with the banners they've been putting out. So I think it's going to be a must pull for crushers. And looking at the tome, this is probably exactly what we're going to need in a month. It's going to have a 1.5 P attack down, a tier 3, and then as well as support boon 2. And then 18 costs, so its stats are alright. I think they're slightly lower than most 18 costs, but other than that, really good tome. This is going to be an upgrade from things like Record of Humanity or Beggar's Secret, but you might not want to replace those in your grid with this, mainly because with attack down tomes, they're very situational in your grid, so obviously don't put this tome into like a 5 Alice Half Nightmare, or going against 5 Alice Half Nightmares, but situationally, there are going to be more Crusher Half Nightmares coming up, especially after this GC, when more people get their GC medals if they didn't have any saved. So we are going to see a lot more Red Riding Hood Half Nightmares. This will be a great counter for that, and I think this is honestly a must pick up. because of how relevant P-Attack is now. And that covers everything else. Like you can see in this banner, things with the 4 in the bottom right corner is what came on this banner in JP. So unless they change it up, it's only going to have these 2 weapons on rate up / featured. So it must pull for Crushers and a must pull for Sorks in my opinion. And then looking at the last banners in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the possible New Year's banner. And from what it sounds like in the dev notes they've been putting out, it sounds like the New Year's banner and like the 6-month anniversary banners are gonna be the same, but I could be wrong. But this was the New Year's banner that they got in the first year, so I wouldn't put it past them that they give us this. And it's gonna have these 3 jobs. So it's gonna have the Alice Kimono Crusher, the Red Riding Hood Kimono Breaker, and then the Cinderella Kimono Sorcerer. It's gonna have normal stats. Or actually, breakers are usually defense, so this is gonna have, or never mind, this is a crusher. It's different because the katana is actually a hammer, not a sword. So normal crusher stats, it's gonna have 400 of physical attack for the Arcana. And then on the breaker, yeah, it is defense for the breaker. 400 defense, physical defense for the breaker. And then normal Sork stats with HP on the Arcanas. I think this banner overall is going to be a huge skip unless you want the limited jobs. That's the only reason to pull on this. The hammer, pretty bad. It's going to have 1.5 targets, and then it's going to have a new skill where it decreases both their attacks by a small amount, but that's like even more useless than the normal attack downs that we've had. And then P defense debuff, and then I'm barely favoring P attack. With the other hammer banners that we've been getting, this is going to be a huge pass from Crushers unless you want the limited jobs. But it could be a step up as well. In that case, I don't know if it's much more worth it to pull, but it's just going to make it easier to get the jobs, I guess. The sword, DC 1 and then leeching skill, so it's a tier 3. This is going to be the best weapon on the banner in my opinion, but it is a sword. And depending on what else comes out this month, I think that sword on the alt Sleeping Beauty and alt Cinderella banner is much better than this. But I guess if you're just trying to fill out a breaker grid, this could be alright filler, but I don't think it's worth going in on this banner anyways, unless it's for the job. And then this tome, I think I'm going to pass on this. I'd only pull on it for the jobs as well. It's going to be the physical attack and physical defense, but it's only going to be on 1 target as a tier 3. So to put in perspective, the Book of Observation and the Christmas tome that we just got, it's the physical attack and physical defense down, but for 1.5 targets. It is a tier 3 as well, but this modifier probably is slightly higher. And then this has support boon 1. So it's, in my opinion, just a downgrade of the Christmas tome. So if you're looking at pulling on this, just in my opinion, just pull for LBs on the Christmas tome. And then it is a 17 cost, so same thing with the Christmas. I really don't see this being too great. I think pick up 1 copy if you really want to. I think it could find a place in the grid, but it's very situational, these kinds of tomes, where it's a physical attack, physical defense. So you would need like physical vanguards on your vanguard, as well as physical vanguards on the enemy vanguard to make full efficiency of this. So instead of this, you could use like Record of Humanity with a higher modifier if you didn't have any physical vanguards, or you can use like what is it, Tome of Brutality, which is just physical defense down if they had no physical vanguards. I think as we get more tomes, these kinds of tomes are going to be some of the first to go, especially ones with these bad of stats and modifiers. But I think obviously like Assassin's Notes, even Book of Observations and the Christmas tomes will have more longevity than this tome. And then looking at the Nightmare on it, it is going to be Blade and Hammer skills debuffed. So this is going to be sort of like Armor Giant, but just for blade and hammers. Armor Giant still doesn't see much use, so I don't think this is going to see any more use either. So only redeeming part is that it has pretty high stats that are balanced across the board, but obviously don't pull just for this nightmare. So to summarize real quickly, I think this is going to be must pull for sorcerers and also must pull for breakers. Also a situational pull for minstrels. I think it is a really decent instrument on this, but you'd have to analyze your grid and decide that for yourself. And then looking at this, I think this is gonna be a must pull for sorcerers and crushers. And then for this, I think this is gonna be one of the first limited banners where you would really only pull on this for the jobs, the limited jobs, because there's really no redeeming weapons on this. And that will pretty much cover it for the rest of the month. I think they will release some other normal banners, but I think they'll probably be one of the 5 or so that we covered in the last video, because I don't want to go over them again in this video. And that should take us to the end of the year. It's been a good year or good 6 months for SINoALICE, and I think we'll see a lot in the future for this game, hopefully. Thank you, and see you in the next one.